Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode, which is all about self-belief. And the first point to make here is self-belief just another term for confidence? And as a self-belief nurturer, which is the term I prefer to coach, you might imagine that I have some strong views on this, and you'd be quite right. So, in my mind, confidence is about not being afraid to do something, not being worried or anxious about doing something, having a belief that you can do it. Whereas self-belief is not knowing if you can do it or not being sure you can do it well or not, but doing it anyway. So I guess I'd kind of sum up confidence as being, I'm not nervous because I absolutely know I can do this thing and do it well. Whereas self-belief is going, I'm nervous because I don't know if I'm going to do well or terribly, but I trust myself to cope with whatever the outcome is. So would
I
you
really love
agree
that.
with that basic
I do,
difference?
do you know what? I love it, and I'm so glad that you said it because it saved me a bit of brain power of trying to work out how to explain it. Because these are terms that people will use interchangeably, and understandably, I'd say as well. And even I was reading an article just the other day, and they actually kept switching the two terms. I noticed they kept saying and then they started to use self-confidence. Which I thought, well, that's interesting. So now we've merged confidence and self-belief to self-confidence.
Mm.
Interesting. But yeah, I really love that definition. And I think it's the thing that stands out for me, the self-belief is this kind of underneath whatever the situation is, it's kind of a I'm going to use the word belief, which is using the word to explain it, which doesn't quite people understand where I'm coming from. This kind of, well, let's maybe put like a trust. Let's use that word instead, a sort of trust in yourself that you are okay outside of whatever the situation or the circumstances. And I think that's one of the key things to
Mm.
latch onto, because I think it's probably a bit unreasonable to expect confidence in every situation and every circumstance, right? But we can have self-belief come what may. Doesn't mean we are excelling at everything that we do or we know we're going to do brilliantly at it, which I think you captured brilliantly in those opening definitions.
Thank you. I mean, I think trust is a big word for me when it comes to self-belief. It is about having that trust in yourself that even if it's all gone tits up, somehow you're going to get through it. You might not know how, and you might not
Hmm.
enjoy it, but somehow you're going to get through it. And that makes it possible to start. Whereas confidence is easier if you don't believe you're going to have to deal with a cock up. If you believe you're going to do it well, yeah, that's a great place to be, of course. But it's somehow easier, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know the word that popped up for me when you were talking that it's almost a little bit more superficial, isn't it? Because it's just in relation to I'm confident in this thing because I don't think I'm going to mess it up. So I don't have to worry about those kinds of consequences. So it keeps it at a very sort of what I would say almost like a 2D type level. Whereas the
Hmm.
self-belief is that little bit deeper. It's how I'm interpreting it now, because you're thinking, I may actually cock up at this thing because I don't know. I may not be the best at this thing, but I'm willing to try it. I'm willing to give it a go. I will do my best and I will see how I do, how I fare. And I think it's quite a brave position to take,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. And that there's something around you when you have confidence in yourself to do something well, to handle something well, then you don't have to deal with that, worry about what other people are going to think, or that fear of judgment, because they're going to judge you that you've done it well, because you can do it well. It's a very positive place to be, isn't it? But that is very different to self-belief. Self-belief can be very sweaty palmed, but doing it anyway.
Mm.
And I did ask ChatGPT about the difference, because last week we talked about dictionary definitions around resilience. So I thought, because I'm a bit lazy, rather than actually just looking them both up separately, I asked ChatGPT, what is the difference based on dictionary definitions? And what it came back with was confidence is the belief in oneself to successfully perform a task or handle a situation, whereas self-belief is a strong conviction in your own potential, worth, and capabilities. And I thought the use of the word successfully was important there. Confidence implies that belief in your success, doesn't it?
Mm. And also perform a task. So a bit like what we were saying, it's sort of very situation specific. So it's very much about the doing, and in this case, the accomplishment, the successfully bit of that task. So it's so for example, probably a good one to use is to be a confident driver, for example, because you just Kirsty's rolling her eyes at me. I think this is, surprise, surprise, something else that we share. I think both of us would describe ourselves as not confident drivers. I hope I haven't put words in your mouth. I have a feeling we've spoken about this before. Um, I don't think I'm not what I would call a confident driver. I like to know exactly where I'm going, to anticipate as much as possible. I can't seem to do the multitasking of trying to work out where to go and then do the physical navigation bit at the same time.
No.
It's not a pretty combination. So that's not a recipe for confident driving. I'm just going to put it out there. You're laughing, Kirsty, so I'm thinking you might be feeling something similar.
Absolutely. Oh no, I've done it. I've done the first. Absolutely, I think. Yeah, so much the same. But I have reached the point. For a long time, I barely drove because I not only didn't have the confidence, but I didn't trust myself to deal with that situation. Whereas now, I mostly trust myself to deal with driving. And if I end up going to the wrong place or in the wrong lane, or somebody's tooting at me, and all this shit, that it makes me tense and it scares me and I don't like it and I get flustered. Even if that happens, I have that belief now that I will deal with it. It will be okay. It may well be horrible, but I'm going to come out the other side okay.
Yeah. And that's a really beautiful highlighting of the difference, isn't it? Just going back to, we're talking about doing a task, but the self-belief bit being about that faith, trust, backing, whatever you want to call it, of you as a person. So it's the being part rather than doing part. And I think that's probably quite a helpful way to make that distinction. It's a
Yeah.
bit like the self-belief, I think, is the sort of foundations bit that you want to be as sturdy as possible. Um, and then the confidence is the kind of more transient, changeable thing that comes on top of that, that's situation dependent. Because like we mentioned
Yeah.
before, you can't expect to be confident in absolutely everything, and certainly not at the beginning, because you acquire skill and knowledge and all those things as well, don't you? I mean, hopefully, so you could use this as a good example. We're doing this podcast with some self-belief that we're going to get through it and it'll be okay, whereas I think neither of us would describe ourselves at the moment as particularly confident podcasters, because it's new to us. We're finding our way through. We're not used to doing it. We might talk over each other, interrupt each other, sort of say what or absolutely a 500 times, or talk about biscuits. There we go. I've dropped it in again.
Oh,
But
excellent.
hopefully, I would imagine. Let's hope we get to like episode 100. Just putting it out there, nice and ambitious. we might actually be feeling a little bit more confident in our skills by that point. But hopefully our belief is that same throughout, that we're going to get through an episode come what may, whether it's what we think is a brilliant episode or whether it's oh, that could have been a little bit better, but it's still okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I'm trying to imagine what it would have been to approach this feeling confident, and rather than with the self-belief, I'm still niggling at that difference between them. And I think if we were confident about it, it would have been, we will produce beautifully polished episodes. We will have this number of listeners because we are, interesting and funny and insightful, and it's all going to be brilliant. And maybe that would have led to considerable disappointment. Who knows? And
Yes.
maybe it would have paid off. Who knows? But this way, with the self-belief that we can have a go at this, we can produce something, and we can cope whether we become superstars or never make. No, we will make it to 100. There, we'll make it to 100. Even if nobody listens, we're doing 100 because we like it, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm happy not being a superstar, but I think, doing it because we
Stephen
enjoy
Bartlett
it as
looking
well.
out.
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, I mean, something that I talk about quite a lot is the impact of conditioning on who we think we are. And I think with self-belief, the impact of the conditioning is massive. The way we are treated, the treatment we experience growing up in particular, I think can really shape whether we develop an innate level of self-belief or indeed forms of confidence. And it was one of the things about this for this episode that it always came to look a bit like a grid to me as I was thinking about, what is it that conditions us to believe in ourselves or to have confidence? And I think if you grow up praised for absolutely everything, never criticized, you're probably going to have a load of confidence because the feedback you get every time you do something is that it's great. So you believe you can do it well. And you probably, as a result of that, you probably have self-belief as well. But I suspect it would be really quite fragile because as soon as you did encounter criticism, it's going to knock you sideways. But on the other hand, if you grow up in an environment where you're criticized for absolutely everything, even with the best of intentions, even to try and help you be better and, develop more, whatever, you're probably going to grow up without confidence or self-belief because you're never hearing that you're good at something. You never believe that you're going to set off doing something well. And if your expectation is always that people are going to respond with judgment and criticism, how can you ever feel good about, pushing through that and moving on? But what if you are praised when you do well, but criticized when you don't do well? That might seem like a nice balance, but it's probably going to give you some confidence. You're going to go believing you're confident to do some things. You're good at some things and you're shit at others. So you probably have very little self-belief, if any. You've just got that belief in your confidence in certain areas. But what if you're praised when you do well and supported when things don't go well? I'm wondering if that could be the bit of the sweet spot there, because it allows you to know what it is to have that confidence in some areas, but it also gives you that self-belief that when things go wrong, you'll know they've gone wrong. Nobody's going to sort of lie to you about it. They're going to be clear that it's wrong, but they're always going to support you so you can cope.
Yeah.
And that was very much sort of off the top of my head when I was thinking about this. Does that make sense to you?
Right. It makes perfect sense. And I really like it, actually. I think it's so important because I think you're not making light of any of these things. Like the supporting bit doesn't mean we don't acknowledge that something didn't go well. We do acknowledge, but it doesn't become like a defining feature, or the thing to remember, because I think that's so important. You want to establish a sense of value, that it's okay to be just as you are, and trying your best. And I think if you you can easily chip away at something like that, can't you? And have a very damaging effect. Fun enough, I was actually listening to one of my favorite podcasts today. Um, just going to mention another podcast. I'm not sure I should do that on ours, but anyway, I
Can
will.
we get commission? Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken about it a few times, obviously not on our own podcast, but I'm not sure if it's one you know, Kirsty. I think we might have spoken about it before. It's called How to Fail. And I just love this concept of a podcast openly talking about failure.
Mm.
And the host is a lady, she's called Elizabeth Day, and she gets on her guests to talk openly about their failures because inevitably they will have shaped who they are and led to future successes. We're going to talk all about failure, I'm sure. That'll be another one of our
Oh,
favorite
yes.
topics, I'm sure. But her guest today, it was Henry Winkler, the guy who played the Fonz.
Bonds.
And
Yeah.
he was talking about his childhood experience and how and the reason it literally just popped into my head is because he spoke very openly about he didn't have this sort of self-belief or confidence when he was younger. He was criticized quite heavily when he didn't sort of reach this sort of mark, or that's how he felt.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be so interesting if he sort of recognized that, criticized for everything, no confidence and no self-belief. And I thought it sounded like that was exactly what he was saying. So I think you've absolutely landed on something with this, how you've represented the shaping of confidence and self-belief. And it happens quite early on, doesn't it? This is what I find. I mean, we're both parents, and our children are older than 7, because actually we do a lot of shaping of our children before the age of 7, don't we? And I'm
Yeah.
start part of me starts to worry, what was I like a few years ago as a parent? Have I helped establish what I hope is belief for my daughter that she is competent and capable, but she doesn't have to excel at everything? So I love this message that if people can hold on to this idea of, yes, it's great to recognize when you do well, it's not the be all and end all, and it's the support when you don't. I think that's almost like the heavy for me. That was like the
Mm.
side of the scales that matters the most. Yes, it's lovely to be recognized and appreciated for when you've done well, but it's not at the expense of, it's okay for things not to go brilliantly. I want you to have the belief and confidence in yourself that you can just do your best and that's enough. Because I think that will actually in turn bring about a better result, won't it? It's like a win-win situation, hopefully.
Yeah, I guess yeah, that's a really good point. I was thinking, if something goes wrong for you and you come home and you tell your parents that something disastrous happened, that things didn't go as it should have done, whatever, if you get that kind of loving support, which doesn't try to pretend that actually it's all okay, or even that none of it was anything to do with you, but you still feel loved and held through that. That is so different to the two extremes of the complete criticism. When you should have done this, what were you thinking? Why didn't you do that? Which makes you feel even worse about it. Or the whole, praised for everything. Well, at least you did this, this, and this. It was everybody else's fault. You're so great. You still don't believe in yourself. Well, I'm so great. Then why did it end up like that? It
Mm,
doesn't add up for you, does it? So that support to be able to be who you are and how you are, and it's okay, however it turns out, that matters so much, doesn't it, in all stages of life.
yeah, definitely.
And then there's as you get, well, even as a child, that sense you can have of being different, that so many children and young people experience, and that sticks with so many of us into adulthood too. If you're a bit too quiet, a bit too introverted, you're not pretty enough, you're not sporty enough, whatever it is, that sense of being different and rejected and unacceptable, that's a very hard environment for self-belief to grow in. And I guess if you do happen to have some kind of talent, something that people do tell you you're good at, that's where you become confident in one area and stick to it, but are afraid to do anything else.
Mhm. Yeah. Going back to what we were saying before about it being more superficial rather than
Yeah.
deep level. And it's interesting, the amount of people I now talk to as adults, and I think I don't know if this is universally true, but I definitely feel like I'm someone who's more comfortable in their skin now in my 40s, and you know, I am who I am, kind of, and I'm relatively happy with who that person is. But it didn't always feel this way, and it certainly
No.
didn't for a lot of people I spoke. They say things like, "I was the quirky kid at school, or the nerdy one, or I didn't quite fit in, or wasn't in the popular gang, or whatever it might
Mm.
be." It's like we as we've hopefully when we get older, we realize that our differences are okay and we are comfortable in our own skin, but you don't necessarily have that. I think you need that more support, going back to the word that you said, for that to be okay. We need that perhaps a bit more reassurance when you're younger that you're not perhaps, like you said, um, considered the pretty one or wearing the right clothes. Oh God, I remember the battle about having the right brand of trainers. Was this a thing for you at school, having the right brand of trainers? Because I did not have the right brand of trainers.
No, but
You
skirt
know
length
what?
was quite a thing. If you're the default uniform skirt was of a certain length and quite A-line, and yeah, the cool kids managed to get away with, taking it up and taking it in. You could
Yeah,
tell the difference immediately between a cool kid and a not. I was very
yeah.
much not the cool kid.
And no, I was not a cool kid either. It's interesting, isn't it? I think it is harder to I don't know if it necessarily is an age thing. It's very difficult because obviously I can only relate to my own feelings, but I'm
Mm.
also, I'm very aware of looking at my daughter now at school. She's about to transition into secondary school, and you are concerned about fitting in, aren't you? And
Yeah.
about not being, I guess, left out. It goes back to the idea of, you don't want to be the separate person from the crowd, whereas perhaps when you're older, you're that little bit more reassured that being different is okay. I don't know if that is specifically an age thing, but I think underneath all of that is definitely this sense that self belief is so important. And I think as parents, we can definitely help cultivate that with our children. Just as I was talking about that podcast episode, it was actually a little bit heartbreaking. Listen to someone recall, and you can imagine the parents probably didn't mean any harm by what they were saying. They were he was recounting a couple of stories of them being incredibly strict with him, and he wasn't allowed to watch TV and all these sorts of things. And he has these little pockets of memories and feeling very much like not being good enough if he did do things that weren't deemed, sort of up to standard. And I can imagine that's well, clearly he even said now at the age of, I think he said he's 78,
Oh
possibly
goodness.
79 now, that it's stuck with him all these years later. So yeah, interesting.
Yes, but same. I mean, I believe that most parents, the vast majority of parents, are not trying to harm their children. We all want the best, but our idea of what constitutes the best and how to deliver that is doesn't necessarily fit with what an individual child actually needs. And a parent a parent can't be expected to know that. It's a tough job, isn't it? It's a tough job being a parent. And however hard we try, I am sure our kids will come out the other side saying, I wish you hadn't done that. I remember when you did this and it made me feel, and we'll be going, oh.
Yeah.
Um, but the good news is that conditioning is ultimately superficial. It can become very embedded, but it's something that we learn, whether consciously or subconsciously, and we can unlearn it. We can relearn things that suit us better, and we can help our children to do that too. But so, how do you go about growing your self-belief? We focus a little more on the self-belief because I think we will probably be talking more about confidence and growing confidence and all that sort of thing in another episode. But how do you grow self-belief? I mean, for me, the most critical thing is self-awareness, being willing to take a good, honest look at yourself with a view to being open to liking what you find, because so often we're not.
Mm. Yeah, it's so easy to actually be critical of ourselves. And we've spoken before about this, haven't we? That, we're often harder on ourselves than we are on other people. But I love this idea of being open to liking what you find, because we can gloss over the good stuff as well, can't we? Very easily. Um, and it brings us back to a term we're going to say this probably quite a lot. It's acceptance. We certainly did in our last
This
episode,
one, yeah.
because you know we're actually statistically very lucky to be alive, aren't we? The chances of us actually having our existence on this earth. I was reading a phenomenal book about this, and it was great. It really kind of puts you in perspective about actually our luck of being born. And we're both in the UK, although we could argue that's not the best country at the moment. But you know, yeah, just this acceptance of who you actually are is incredibly important.
Yeah, and recognizing that you have value as a unique individual, because that whole fitting in thing, that desire to conform, I mean, it comes from a valid place. I believe it's fundamentally a survival instinct. You need the tribe to survive. But amidst all that, so often, and the pressure of social media and the mass media and society as a whole, you lose sight of the fact that the biggest value we have to offer the world is our uniqueness, because it's all those sets of differences that keep humanity developing and evolving and moving forward. And if we all just tried to be the same as each other, we'd be a mass army of clones. And well, that doesn't sound very appealing, frankly.
No.
I mean, it might make for a good sort of horror or sci-fi movie, but a fairly unappealing reality, I fear.
Mm.
But again, it often seems to me even the whole education system is designed to tamp down those differences and have people thinking the same and behaving the same and dressing the same. And yeah, and that quirkiness gets tempered. But perhaps an easier thing to do, because I mean that those levels of acceptance and self-awareness, they do take work and they take time, right? And hashtag just saying, coaching is a great way to develop that. But one thing that we often don't do, which I think is really helpful with self-belief, is acknowledging that we've all got a 100% track record of coping with absolutely everything that life has thrown at us. We're still here, we're still standing. Okay, we might feel a bit battered and bruised. We might have had, pretty grim times where we struggled to get through, but we are still here, we've done it. And that's something to be celebrated. And all too often we're too busy recognizing where we failed, how we failed, what we got wrong, what difficulties are in front of us, that we don't stop to go, I got through all that.
Yeah.
I did it. I can cope. I have always coped one way or the other. Even when I had no idea how I was going to, I got through it.
Do you know what made me think about the fact that we can, even though we struggle with, is we celebrate things that we do or achievements that we have rather than perhaps who we are, which is exactly what you've just been talking about, with the fact that you are a person who still has got through all of these difficulties and challenges. That doesn't sound like a naturally easy thing to recall to celebrate, if that makes sense. You think about the things that you celebrate generally are things like, oh, I passed this exam, I got this grade, I got this qualification. It's like markers of ability. And I'm not for one moment suggesting that those aren't things to celebrate, because those are hard earned,
Good.
and they
Yeah.
absolutely are. But those are examples of celebrating the doing rather than perhaps being. And I think, as we established at the beginning, the self-belief part is about who you are, not necessarily
Yeah.
what you do.
Mm. That's, yeah, who you are, and all that makes you who you are is not something we tend to spend a lot of time considering or celebrating. And the times we most need self-belief, when we're stood, in the midst of the chaos and the shitstorm, going, I simply don't know how to get through this. At that point, you need the self-belief, and it is so easy to forget that you've stood there before. Okay, so different shitstorm each time, but you've stood there going, I don't know how. And each time you got to the other side. You don't need to know how, you just need to believe that you can,
Mm.
that you always have. Here ends the sermon. Sorry.
It was a very helpful sermon, because the truth is, if our self-belief also connects to our feelings of our worth and our value, and our place in the world, it is important that we have a level of that, because if we don't, we are likely to settle for things that are not what we really want, including
Yeah.
how we are being as well. And I think it's like a domino effect, isn't it? Which is so we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? The fact that a lot of things we talk about are so connected. It's like one more link to the next thing. All these other terms we talked about, confidence,
Yeah.
resilience, all these, it's like the thread that connects them all. And if you've got a weak piece, it doesn't allow for the whole thing to kind of come together. But I think what we've been speaking about today is the fact that self belief is kind of quite a strong foundation piece on which some of the other ones will balance or depend on more. So if it's not in a particularly good shape, the ripple effect I think can be stronger.
Yeah. Yes, I like that idea of self-belief as a foundation. And it's not a case of believing that you're perfect, and another one of our favorite topics, but just about believing that who you are is okay, that who you are matters and is worthwhile
Yeah,
and capable,
definitely.
worth liking. Perhaps sometimes I think it's that simple, that not even loving yourself, but just if you like yourself, if you see something in yourself worth liking. And something I've asked clients before who are struggling with that sort of self-belief and seeing anything worthwhile in themselves. Do you believe you're a good person? And I've never actually had anyone say no. That might be the time to start rolling out the psychopath test, I guess. But
Yeah.
sometimes it can be that simple. Do you believe you are basically a good person trying to do their best?
Mm.
What more can we fundamentally ask of anybody? If you believe that about yourself, then you are worth something, right?
Yeah. Love that. You've come very close to today's question, but no, but no, it's lovely. Because before we do, let's share a couple of our favorite quotes. I think some really lovely ones here about self-belief.
Hmm.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, one that spoke to me was a really short one that I encountered. It was, as soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live, by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. But that is one of those quotes that kind of, it makes sense and it means something, and yet you keep thinking about it and pulling on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live. That feels wise.
Yeah, it does. In its simplicity, like you will
Yeah.
know how to live. Because it's interesting because you start to think, well, hang on, if I don't, how am I living? That's an interesting thought,
Oh,
isn't
oh.
it? But let's park that thought for now because we might disappear down a
Oh
rabbit
yeah,
hole
sorry.
forevermore.
You're about to send me right off down a rabbit hole. Okay, what you share a quote that
Um,
spoke to you.
yeah, well, I particularly like this one. Believe in yourself and all that you are. Particularly like that bit because it's the are, the being.
Mm.
So I've interrupted the quote. Let me start again. Believe in yourself and all that you are. There is something inside you that is greater than any obstacle. Christian D. Larson. And I like that because it is that focus on the being and something inside you. So no matter who you are, it's not about your sort of competence or skill set. It's just you will, like you said, you get through things, you get through the challenging stuff, the hard stuff, as well as all the good stuff that comes in life. So I like this idea of believing in all that you are and it is greater than the obstacles outside.
That's brilliant. I love that. There's something any greater than any obstacle. Oh, that feels inspiring.
Hmm.
Hmm. So, shall we do the question?
Yes, yes, let's do the
Brilliant.
question. We've got a lovely simple question for you all today, but sometimes simplicity is best. And as always, we will answer it ourselves. And it is one that, it's so simple, but you might find it strange to answer because obviously we have thought about what we're going to say, but even we sort of hesitated, didn't we? For a moment, thought, oh, what should we say? So we're going to ask it. The question is, what do you like most about yourself? So, Kirsty,
Oh,
I'm going to ask you.
yeah. I say even knowing that was coming, even with the warning, it still feels a little bit uncomfortable to answer it. There's still that sense that we're not supposed to blow our own trumpets, and I
Mm,
think that can interfere with self-belief. We're not supposed to blow our own trumpets and talk about how good we are and what we like about ourselves. So, what do I like most about myself? It's is my willingness to be open, um, an openness to seeing the world differently, to thinking, feeling, and behaving differently, to different ideas, an openness to trying to understand other people's not just their opinions, but their feelings, where they're coming from, to sort of try and get under their skins and be in their map of the world. I think that's it can lead to being very sort of indecisive and spending a lot of time in the grey areas. But yeah, it's like a little adventure all the time because you're always seeing things differently and finding something different to experience in the same things, if that makes sense.
mm, yeah, perfect sense.
How about you? What do you most like about yourself, Catherine?
Mm. I'm a bit like you, still find this a bit strange to answer. And it's probably, I'm not even sure what I would have said a few years ago,
Mm.
to be honest, if someone asked me this. But I think what I would say now is I have a kind of calmness that comes with, I think it's that ability to just be a little bit pause rather than jump in with whatever reaction I might initially have. I think I have it. People often comment on it that I have quite a calming quality. So they might come to me all het up and agitated, but after a few minutes, they just feel a bit more calm and relaxed and heard. And I think I've always had, I think, quite an empathetic side to me. So I think I can tune into that quite quickly and sort of understand where bit like you were saying about where are other people coming from?
Hmm.
I think you said sort of being in their skin or something, didn't you? And I'm like, I'd rather do this putting their shoes on than being in their skin, I think. But I think I can sort of see where people, yeah, a definite empathy. I can see where this person is coming, even if I don't necessarily agree or I see
Yes.
things differently. I think I like the fact that I can recognize that because I think it actually helps me check in with my own response. And it's like I said, I think this is a different reply than I might have given some years ago. I think I could be quite a frantic, oh no, disaster, whatever has happened, and get caught up in all of this stuff. Whereas I just don't so much now. My husband might disagree. Is it really? I'm not sure I've seen this. Actually, yeah, I like the fact that I can sort of not jump to sort of worst case scenario type
Hmm.
stuff so much anymore and just kind of slow down a little bit and also be quite grateful for the small things. I think I didn't do that very much before, and I appreciate that's probably a bit more of a I think it is a being rather than a doing. I wanted to focus on a being state rather than a doing state, and I suppose they overlap in the examples that I've given, and I've greedily probably chosen several rather than one, but they are kind of,
It's all part of
again,
the same thing. That's
it
separate.
is a
Yeah.
bit, isn't it? It's hard, but I think, yeah, I like, um yeah, being able to put other people at this kind of ease even when they're perhaps not feeling it straight away. um yeah.
I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful quality. And where you said there about having perhaps, picked several things, get me there is it's quite hard to isolate something. We are more than a bundle of qualities or traits. We are, because if you do that, it's almost as if you can take this one out, add this one in, and you can sort of become somebody else. And I don't think it works like that. The more you start to dig into that thing you like about yourself, the more it becomes part of all of you, if that makes sense. It's all interconnected. So your calmness and that awareness of the small things, appreciation and gratitude for the small things, the empathy, you could add them, but they're all part of this bigger package that is you. So liking that quality about yourself, it evolves into liking yourself.
Mm. Well, that's a challenge we can set for our listeners then. See if you can do the same thing. Look for that one thing, even if it feels a bit uncomfortable, and you might
Mm.
land on something. I landed on the word calm, and I thought that's weird. Why do I like that? But now I've just spoken it out loud for the first time with Kirsty, and now it's made much more sense. So we encourage you all at home to do the same thing. Start with that one word and see what else it leads on to.
Yeah, that's a brilliant challenge. Well, thank you very much for the conversation, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.